The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery, but the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. We are presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Nice to have Jenna Cottrell back with us. Jenna 13.
Thanks for having me, guys.
The iconic Mike Catalana.
Yeah.
Co-hosting, along with Pat Duffy. Who are you wearing today?
This is a Cleveland Cavaliers alternate Isaiah Thomas jersey. I think me and Isaiah Thomas's mom are the only two people who own this one.
And she probably doesn't like it.
Well, I mean, yeah. I feel so bad for that. You want to talk about a guy that lost $80 million in a matter of like 5 months. Insane.
Hey, this past week, Jenna, we've been talking a lot about, in light of the conference finals and all the refereeing mistakes and the overtimes, all the rest of the stuff. Where's the NFL go from here? I mean, is there something to be learned from the past weekend of games that they should respond to?
I mean, I think there's definitely something to be learned just in the fact that the way both, the endings of both games going to overtime, some of those calls down the stretch were huge. But I don't know if the league will actually take any action. They've really kind of dug in, I feel like, a lot of times. And I think if you were to look at replay, like, that missed pass interference call on the Kelroby Coleman, I don't know if replay is the answer of looking at every single call down the stretch, how much time that would take.
But trying to sell a shrug is tough.
Yes, I agree. I do think for overtime, though, I think the league should look into maybe making some changes because it's almost like if you're in a hockey game in a shootout and only one team gets to have the opportunity to do a shootout. Like the reason these guys are in the playoffs is because they can score touchdowns. So I don't really think it's fair to have only one team really get the opportunity to do that.
Mike, I have to admit, I stole this from a caller on one of the local talk shows that actually I thought had something. It suggested that the overtime is okay, but the coin flip is bad. And that the team that gets the ball first should do it on merit. But I'm kind of thinking like maybe the team that had the most first downs during regulation gets the ball first. Something along those lines do anything for you?
No, I would go.
Nah. My ideas never get well received.
No,
what are your ideas?
No, because I look at it and say it's almost like you are going to play a small game within the game to try to decide it. The way I look at that with that overtime, the one argument is, the guy will step up and say, well, play defense. Well, you've already changed the rule to say you allow a field goal. So play defense, just play a little bit more than if you allowed a field goal. My thought is if your team's in the game, and you're rooting for the Patriots, so they score and they win, you're happy. Almost every other fan, certainly Chiefs fans, watching that game wanted to see Patrick Mahomes get the ball and see if he has a chance to tie the game. Yeah. And I understand you can't just play and play and play forever and there can be injuries and all. But I think in the playoff setting, maybe not in the regular season because you can't stay all day and it is a long season. But in the playoffs, I would say, much like they do in hockey, you play until it's done. That's not what they do in the regular season. And I know you hate the shootout. I know you do. But there's 80 games in the regular season in hockey. You can't just play forever in overtime. You could have a tie. But in this case, I'd say, man, give Mahomes or the other team a shot if the other team scores a touchdown. That's all I would change.
There's a very simple solution to fixing this problem. You stop the clock to end the game, and whoever has the ball continues to play football, and you keep the rules exactly the way they are. There's no disadvantage there. For example, right? I forget who had the ball. It was the Rams who had the ball. They sent it in overtime. Okay, so then the Saints get the ball coming out because the Rams had to frantically drive down the field to score that touchdown. Therefore, it's now the Saints' possession. How would that alter anything?
I don't hate that.
I don't understand. It's such a simple idea. You're kind of punishing a team that had to drive their way back. Okay, well, now they get their chance to answer, and if they score a touchdown, the game's over. If not, you get the ball and have your opportunity to score.
It's interesting, but the way football has been set up, the quarters aren't done that way, but the half is, right? The half ends where it ends, and then you start secondly, and there is a 60-minute game, and overtime does have its own set of rules. Now, you could change that and extend the game.
That argument isn't valid because the way that football has been done up until 9 years ago was the first team to score wins, right? Like, I hate that traditionalist argument.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
But
I'm not saying
traditional.
And by the way, no argument I make is invalid.
Okay.
Just want to tell you that.
That's why it's iconic.
Yes, exactly.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We are presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. We'll talk Buffalo Bills next.
The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza.
Welcome back. We are the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. So the Buffalo Bills, arguably the three weakest parts of their game last year: special teams, wide receivers, offensive line. They replaced those assistant coaches, so I assume everything is okay now.
Well, they're going to have to make a lot of moves. I think they recognize, as we've talked about before, they still were a 6-10 team. Yes, and they have money to spend. They're changing some things in the coaching staff, and they're addressing issues that were pretty obvious last year. Yeah, it's nice to have different coaches. You need better players in those circumstances. They're going to need to be aggressive. But aggressive doesn't mean necessarily be stupid with your money. Just go spend. The Bills have tried to do that before. We've seen other teams fail to do that. I think they're going to be I think a smart way to go about it is to do a bit of a mix of that. You're going to need veterans, and you're going to need to maybe spend a little more money on certain guys on that offensive line to get them to come. And I'm not talking about breaking the bank left tackles and spending $15 million a year. Yeah, you do. Don't ever do that again. But I think you're going to need a mix there. You can't just go out and draft 4 guys and say, now it's going to work, 4 guys with Deion. I think they're going to bring some veterans in. They'll spend a little bit of money there. And then I think, in some of the other skill positions, I think they're going to go younger.
Can you name a single high-paid free agent offensive lineman that the Bills have signed in the last 25 years that worked for them? Because I remember Derek Dockery, that didn't go well.
No, that was the one I was going to talk about. It was Dockery and...
I know who else it was. I can't remember the name right now.
They signed 2 guys, and it ended up being a disaster.
He was like the first guy out of the gate. Right?
But yeah. I can't... I love that, all of this team. I cannot think of a single high-profile offensive lineman that they signed for big money that worked out. Incognito worked out, but he came in at a bargain because of what happened.
And I'm not saying high-profile like the top left tackle or right tackle in the game and you give him a crazy contract. I'm saying it was veteran players who've been around the league to mix in with the young guys.
And I think McDermott loves that. And also just hearing Brandon Beane talk, this team, they want to go for best available in the draft. They've made that very clear that they're not going to be drafting for need. So I think they're really going to look during free agency, and they do have that money.
Jenna's right. And they have so many needs.
Well, she's right that he's going to do it, but I think it's a stupid move to do.
But if you look at this roster, though, I know there's the immediate needs, but looking down the line, if you draft for need this year, then you're just going to set yourself up down the line for having those exact same issues.
Soon to be wrong.
Okay, I said this 3-4 weeks ago that there's going to be a situation. I'm not typing on a typewriter making a point. There was going to be a situation where the Bills are going to be sitting at their spot in the first round, and there's going to be a defensive tackle that falls to them, and they're going to take that defensive tackle, and they're going to take their time finding their offensive linemen or their wide receivers, and then lo and behold, here comes opening day, and we got serious gaps again. I don't mind reaching to fill need because you don't know. I hate this take the best available. You don't know who the best available was until 3 years after the draft's over.
Well, you're...
Who is wrong now?
You.
Traditional?
Again. No, you have... That's the plus of having so many needs. You can draft almost any position.
But that's the one need that they can sit on for a little while. Defensive tackle, it's going to be a D tackle. I'm calling it now.
It's a very strong draft for defensive tackles. At least most people believe that it is.
Which is a good reason not to draft a defensive tackle.
Well, it depends. Again, it depends on how you have people. Look, to Pat's point, and I will give him this much. If the difference between your D tackle and your right tackle or a center, which is a big need for him, is very minimal, I think they may then still go with more of a need. But you're talking about very minimal. Don't be reaching for an offensive lineman when you don't have that guy ranked maybe 10 picks back.
Let's go in the Wayback Machine. Get in with me, everybody. You ready for this? I seem to remember a Bills team that had a really good running back in Travis Henry, and they drafted a guy with no leg in Willis McGahee that didn't work out so well. Then let's go back a little further, but before or after that. There was a team that had Fred Jackson and Marshawn Lynch, and they drafted the best player available in C.J. Spiller, which caused them to move arguably one of the greatest running backs in the last 15 years. When you draft for need, you put yourself in a bad position, not only on the field, but in the front office trying to get all those guys under contract. Don't do it. Or draft for position. You know what I'm saying.
Moments of Bills history to make your point. They're not going to do that.
Find me a good moment. Find me a good moment where they drafted the guy that was best available and it worked out for him.
I'm sure it's there.
No, take your time. I got time.
I'm saying is it depends
we got
on
another
what you-
15 minutes here.
They've been able to show, at least through the limited examples that they've had, that Brandon Beane has been able to draft well. Sean McDermott as well. You got Trey White. I mean, Zay Jones really coming along.
Needs. Those were needs.
How about
But
when
this team has so many needs.
Exactly. How about when they drafted Patrick Mahomes in the first round? Oh.
They needed a quarterback. Need.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Like it or not, is next.
Here's the Press Box Trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Today is all about belief. Right? It's not enough for me to believe it. It's not enough for Coach Hill or Coach Barstrom to believe it. You have to be the ones that believe that you are capable of running the way that we all know you are capable of, and that those negative thoughts that are coming into your head, you can acknowledge and push away. What's your response to them going to be? 5 more meters, 5 more meters, 5 more meters.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Like it or not, Isaiah Stewart decides to go to the University of Washington.
It is amazing how things have turned for Syracuse University in the last couple of years. I mean, he's going to Washington because of Mike Hopkins, and the argument has always been Hopkins was the guy, those guys that was able to get the players for Boeheim. He was able to pluck a huge prospect right out from under Jim Boeheim and bring him all the way across the country. I think it's good for the kid. I think he's concerned about how he's going to play, which offense he's going to play in, which is great for him. And I think he's going to be successful in doing it. At this point, if I am a high school basketball player or the parent of a high school basketball player, I trust the system Mike Hopkins is going to run, maybe over the system Boeheim's going to run.
I know what else is impressive for Hopkins. He didn't just beat out Boeheim here at home. He beat out other Hall of Famers, right?
Yeah.
Calipari, Izzo, and Krzyzewski to get him. And, you know, Isaiah Carter's already out there, too. Another young guy. They're friends. He's going out there to play with him. But to Pat's point, too, you know, and we think Isaiah projects to be a one-and-done type player. That's what most people think. And he wants to spend his 1 year out west as opposed to an hour from where he grew up. It is telling, but if Mike Hopkins was still at Syracuse,
He'd be at Syracuse.
I think he'd be at Syracuse.
Is this a singular case, do you think, Jenna, or is Boeheim maybe beginning to lose his grip on the recruiting trail?
I mean, I think the relationship that Hopkins had, especially with Isaiah, was so important. But I think, if a lot of kids coming up, they're very good. A lot of don't want to play the zone, and I can understand that. And I think, a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, kind of the one and done thing. They want to get ready for an NBA style offense. They want to get ready for an NBA style defense. They want to get ready for that next level. And I think if you look at it in the dome and the way that Jim Boeheim plays, I don't know if players are going to be attracted to that.
They recruit against Boeheim's lack of success with producing NBA players. Is that valid?
I think it almost has to be. Look, guys have gotten into the league, but you look at who has been the most successful recently. It's a guy like Jeremy Grant, who left early, went in the second round, got out, got criticized by a lot of people, and then made his way. The problem you see in Syracuse is, if you're looking at their NBA projections, is players leave earlier than most people think, and that's not usually a good sign. When Mike Krzyzewski loses a guy, for the most part, the guy's gone top 5 in the draft. And when Calipari celebrates with him and goes to the draft, his guys are those guys. Syracuse has lost players they probably shouldn't be. Now, Tyus Battle came back this year, but I think it starts to reflect a little bit on what top players are looking for.
Let me come back to you again. Like it or not, this year's Hall of Fame class for baseball.
I find it very interesting that I don't understand you baseball purists, and I'm looking strictly at you because I know you're that guy. For years and years and years and years, you don't want to put a DH in the Hall of Fame. You won't do it. And that's changing now with Edgar Martinez and Harold Baines. But the only unanimous Hall of Famer in the history of baseball is a guy that plays the most specific role in baseball. in Mariano Rivera? How does that make any logical sense? This guy that actually has an effect on offense, we're not putting him in because he doesn't play the field. Mariano Rivera pitches for 6 to 8 outs when he's out there, and he's a unanimous Hall of Famer. Somebody explain that to me.
I just thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, I think it was going to happen.
No, listen, he's deserving.
Well, he's deserving. Obviously, there were a list of players who were deserving to be unanimous Hall of Famers. I think it's an overcorrection. I don't think anybody can doubt Rivera is a Hall of Fame player. The fact that he's unanimous, I think it just was a convergence of things. You know, I mean, Ted Williams wasn't unanimous, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron. I mean, it's crazy that people didn't vote for them.
It doesn't mean Rivera's better than those guys.
Absolutely not. But I will say, going forward, somebody's like, oh, there's going to be a bunch of them. I think Ichiro has a chance, certainly, to be a unanimous Hall of Famer. Past that, I was trying to look through the list. I think the next guy you're looking at might be Mike Trout.
No, they talked Derek Jeter next year.
I don't think Jeter's a unanimous Hall of Famer. He'll be high, but he's not going to be unanimous.
Well,
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next. And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Get 2 for $2 egg and cheese wraps, 2 for $4 bagels with cream cheese spread, and 2 for $5 bacon, egg, and cheese croissants with Dunkin' Go-Tos. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is brought to you by Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'.
So as the NBA season continues and LeBron's doing his thing out in Los Angeles, there are now a lot of people saying, look at what's happening with the Lakers. LeBron is not the greatest player of all time. Jordan and Bill Russell, blah, 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 blah. I'd like to make a point as I wear my Cleveland Cavaliers jersey today. I have never seen a team in the history of professional sports that has had the roller coaster ride that the Cleveland Cavaliers have had over the last 15 seasons. A team that went to, 5 NBA finals, along with having 3 first overall picks. The peaks and the valleys and the peaks and the valleys. Great, 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 great for the team in the city of Cleveland. Horrible for the team in the city of Cleveland. They were either in first place or last place, and all of that was because of LeBron James, a single player. You had rosters that were exactly the same the season after LeBron left, that went from winning games that put them in the first overall seed in the Eastern Conference to literally the first overall pick in the NBA draft. It didn't happen with Jordan. When he didn't play, his teams made it into the playoffs, and those were teams with talent, legitimate talent. LeBron didn't have that and was able to win all of these things. Listen, I know it's all relative, right? It all comes down to when they played and what mattered. But when you're looking at pure team success, there is no way anymore, based on the Cavs, to argue that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time.
Yeah. And a lot of that is management, too. I mean, if Cleveland had capable management, it wouldn't be quite like that.
I agree with you.
Are you done?
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, great. Good luck.
All right, I know a lot of NFL players, a lot of NFL fans are really upset at the way the games of the conference championships ended this past weekend. Some bad calls down the stretch. A lot of fans very upset. But Roger Goodell is getting exactly what he wants out of this Super Bowl matchup. You have the evil empire in the Patriots, and then you also have the LA Rams, the second largest market in America. I know there was a lot of talk about last year how, revenue for the NFL was down. People are not watching as much. But when you have the second biggest market and fans that are becoming Rams fans to root against the Patriots, this is a dream scenario for the NFL and Roger Goodell.
Kind of is. Evil empire, huh? You can't steal that from the Yankees. There's
evil
one,
empire.
There's one evil empire.
In football, they're the evil empire.
I'm going to stick with Tom Brady. I saw some things written this week. Brock Hewitt, former NFL quarterback, was talking about, I don't understand all the dislike and the hatred of Tom Brady. He's the greatest of all time. To Pat's point about arguing about it, are we past the point where anybody's going to argue that Brady isn't the best quarterback? He is the best quarterback. He's the most successful. He's the biggest winner. He's doing it at 41 years old. We get it. We know it. We're tired of it. We're tired of his greatness. And that's why people start to dislike him. The Instagram post, the smugness, the Tom Brady, the I reinvented how to stay healthy, the TB12, all that stuff just adds to the fact that people are going to dislike him. Don't make the argument that people dislike him and therefore they don't think he's great. They know he's great. He's been great. He's been too great for too long. We're tired of it. But that's a different argument that's saying he isn't the greatest of all time.
You know what I don't get is how come there's not an element of Michael Jordan to Tom Brady's performance?
No, I think it's more
likability.
LeBron James.
Yeah.
It's LeBron James. There is a lot of dislike. And like LeBron, Brady sort of has embraced a little bit, like that Instagram shows you a little bit of, I don't mind being that guy. I don't mind being the guy that people will dislike. And more people stick up for him.
That is he a victim of the times, do that?
Yes, I think that's what it is. It's oversaturation, where Tom Brady and LeBron James have social media and 24-hour news, where Joe Montana and Michael Jordan, you turned on the TV to see him play ball, you went to see Space Jam, that was the end of it. Love that movie.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse Unfinished Business, brought to you by Duncan. America runs on Duncan. Jenna, thanks again.
Thanks.
Great as always, guys.
Thank you.
The iconic Mike Catalana. They did legalize that name like Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.